How's it going, YouTube? Robo Sushi here, and thank you guys so much for the support on the first rulings video. That video took a lot of time, a lot of effort went into it, just to make sure that you guys know your rulings. I think it's super important to know our rulings so we know exactly how the game is supposed to be played. I've said that so many times in the first video, and I really do think is a very important thing for us to know. That being said, welcome to part 2. This time we're going to go over a few more rulings, some frequently asked questions I've had. Maybe this might be answered from one of the comments in the previous video, or it will be a new one that I thought would be important. Maybe some other decks have shown up in the format that I thought that people might see and want to know how a few interactions are. But all that being said, guys, I'm going to try to put it again in like a color type setup. So where I'll have the timestamps for colors. It's not going to be necessarily as color restrictive as it was last time, just because there's a few things that are only like one example is a color, and maybe like Digivolve will show up in this video. That will be under the black section, even though technically Digivolve can pop up in a few other things. It's just more prevalent in black cards. So with all that being said, let's hop into the rulings. So the first little bit of ruling we're going to go over is going to be in the red color, and here's our board state. We start off with a Marcus Daemon. Marcus has the Memory Tamer effect, and then whenever you attack with a Greymon, Sans the 3 Greymon, Dora Greymon, Dex Dora Greymon, and Burning Greymon, you can suspend him to gain a memory. What we're also going to have here on the board is a promo Agunimon. We're going to have a Flamemon underneath. This is inconsequential to the example, and then we're going to have Koromon. So Koromon has the effect of when attacking once per turn. This is BT7 Koromon. If this Digimon has Omnimon or Greymon, Sans the 3 Greymon again, you can trigger draw 1. So in this scenario, people will go in and you'll swing in with the Agunimon. Now again, Koromon doesn't come up a whole lot, but it's a fun example to go over, and it shows you a little bit of the timing and how effects are worded. So when you swing with Agunimon, you have 2 when attacking effects triggering at the same time. You have the effect of Agunimon's when attacking, and you have the effect of Koromon's. Now, you may think, but Koromon's effect can't activate. And it can't, but it does trigger. This kind of shows you the differentiate between when attacking effects triggering and when attacking effects actually activating. So in this example, Koromon triggers, Agunimon triggers. They trigger at the same time. You choose to activate Agunimon first, I should say. So then you'll Digivolve the Agunimon into your Ancient Greymon, paying the 2 memory costs. So say we're at 0, we go to 2. Now, the other when attacking effect we have to resolve is the Koromon effect. It is yet to activate. You choose now to activate it. Now at this point, the Koromon's when attacking effect can resolve because the Digimon that is attacking is Ancient Greymon. So you will be able to trigger your draw 1. Now, at the same time, you will not be able to trigger Marcus. Marcus's effect happens on attack declaration. So when you attack with the Agunimon, now this is the point where Marcus would have to be suspended. By the time you Digivolve into Ancient Greymon, you're in the process of attacking. The Digimon that declared the attack was not a Greymon, so Marcus will not be able to be suspended. If you're playing this in your red hybrid builds, be sure that you know that this card does not work in this situation when you warp from Agunimon into your Ancient Greymon to gain you the memory. So next on the docket for our rulings, this is going to be a red, but it's also going to be a little bit of blue, and it doesn't necessarily have to pertain to red. You'll see what I mean here in a second. Right here we have an Ancient Greymon stack with 3 hybrids in its sources, because Ancient Greymon's your turn effect is for every hybrid and or Greymon in its sources, minus the Sans the 3 Greymons, then he gets security attack +1. This could also be something like a Jesmon stack with a started at Greymon in the sources, or a Doragormon stack with 1 or 2 Dex, or not Dex, with Dora Greymon in the stack. Anything that basically gives extra security attacks based on the sources. So, and the top card of our opponent's security will be Tamihimi. They have 5 security. What matters is the top card. Tamihimi's security effect lets you play him, and then his on-play effect strips 3 sources from the bottom of one of your Digimon. So, onto the example, we'll have our Ancient Greymon, 3 hybrids in sources. He effectively has security, or 4 security checks with security attack +3 for each of the hybrids, and his base security attack that all Digimon start with. So in this example, we'll swing in with the Ancient Greymon. Ancient Greymon's first security check will in fact hit Tommy. Tommy will come out of security, activating security effect. This all happens before any more checks are made. You finish resolving the security effect. So Tommy comes out, he will then play himself. On play, Tommy will strip 3 cards, 3 evolution sources, from the bottom of Ancient Greymon. So at this point, the game will recalculate how many more security checks does Ancient Greymon need to do. Now, while Ancient Greymon did start with doing 4 checks on his attack, he lost 3 of those checks, his security attack plus 3, via losing his 3 hybrids in his sources. So in this situation, Ancient Greymon has done his 1 check, the game knows that, and they also know that Ancient Greymon no longer has any more security attack. So at this point, the attack will effectively end, Ancient Greymon will do no more security checks. For our next ruling example, we have this. This is our only focused blue ruling that I have for you guys, but it does come up. I've seen it asked on different other places, such as Discord and also at my locals. So we have a Korikakumon. This doesn't matter exactly. It needs to be a level 4 because Koji needs to be in the sources, or any Digimon that has Koji in the sources. Koji's inheritable effect is your turn once per turn. When a card effect adds a card to your hand, you get to gain a memory, and then this Digimon can't be blocked until the end of your turn. Our opponent has a Bokomon. Again, this card doesn't necessarily matter. It just needs to be a Digimon without a source, because we have a Upamon in the source of a Madoki Betamon. The only effect we're worried about here is the Upamon effect. So, in this situation, most people know that, like, if you were to use Koji's effect, have a Beowulfmon, add the Beowulfmon's effect to add the Korikakumon back to your hand, that would trigger the effect of Koji, you'd gain you a memory, or you'd get it off of something like a Davis search comes out, Davis will add a card to your hand via his effect, that will gain you a memory. Those are effects that add cards to your hand. What most people don't think about is a situation like this. Upamon's effect, whenever a Digimon has no Digivolution sources on your opponent's side of the field, when this Digimon attacks, you get to draw 1. So in this situation, we'll swing security with Madoki Betamon. Again, doesn't matter how the check resolves, but this triggers Upamon's effect because our opponent does have a Bokomon on their side of the field that has no has no evolution sources. This will net us a draw 1. So we'll draw a card, don't mind the fact that it's an egg. So we'll draw 1 card. This drawing of 1 card is an effect that is given by Upamon to add a card to our hand. Upamon's effect draws us a card, effectively adding a card to our hand. This will trigger the effect of Koji to gain us a memory, because, as stated, an effect added a card to our hand. Even though the effect is draw 1, it does add a card to your hand. This does not work for Digivolution draws, because that is not an effect that adds a card to your hand. That is a game mechanic that adds a card to your hand. So, next on the docket is going to be yellow. Now, this isn't restricted exactly to yellow. There are a few other scenarios I see where this can go over, but yellow and Lord Nightmon are just a really good example of how this whole effect and attack resolution will work, to basically show you how some timing things work and how you have to resolve, how if you resolve things in specific order, it can affect the outcome of how something else would resolve in the same attack. You'll see what I mean in a second. So in this situation, we have 5 security and we have a Lord Nightmon. Lord Nightmon has an Angelomon from BT3 in the sources, 2 Digimon without inheritables, we're not worried about those, and a BT3 Upamon. Lord Nightmon's effect reads, when attacking, this is the only effect we're going to worry about, you may play a level 3 yellow Digimon from your hand without paying its memory cost, or you can play a yellow warrior Digimon in its traits. It has to be exactly warrior, can't be something like holy warrior or something like that. A yellow warrior Digimon without paying its memory cost. Angelomon's when attacking effect is, if you have 3 or fewer security cards, you can play a level 3 yellow Digimon from your hand without paying its memory cost. Upamon's when attacking once per turn effect is, if you have 3 or fewer security cards, draw 1 card. So, in this situation, what we're going to do is we're going to swing in with Lord Nightmon. This will trigger 3 effects at the same time. The when attacking effect of Lord Nightmon will trigger, the Angelomon's when attacking effect will trigger, and the Upamon's when attacking effect will trigger. Now, yes, I said they trigger. You might think that, well, Angelomon's effect can't activate and Upamon's effect can't activate. It can't activate at this current time, but it can in fact trigger. They will always trigger when attacking. But what matters here is how certain things play out to maybe be able to activate them. In this situation, we're going to use Lord Nightmon. We're going to play the BT6 Pulsemon. BT6 Pulsemon on play, you may trash cards from the top of your security stack to gain 1 memory for each card trashed. So, in this situation, this is a May effect. You can choose not to activate it. But we had the when attacking effects of Angelomon and Upamon still left to resolve, but they are now the older pending activation. The most recent pending activation here is Pulsemon. Pulsemon being the most recent pending activation, we have to choose if we're going to activate it first before we go back to the older pending activations. In this situation, we will activate the effect of Pulsemon, trashing the 2 top cards from the top of our security, gaining us 2 memory. So let's say we started at 0, now we go up to 2 memory. Now that Pulsemon has finished resolving, we go back to our 2 older pending activations. Now we have Angelomon's pending activation, Ubermon's pending activation that can now activate, because before they weren't able to activate. They definitely triggered, but they weren't able to activate because we weren't at 3 security. Now we are at exactly 3 security, so now let's say in this situation we activate the effect of Angelomon, playing out a Pulsemon. Now again, we've resolved Angelomon's effect playing the Pulsemon. Pulsemon is the newest pending activation, so even though we still have yet to activate Ubermon's effect, we have to activate Pulsemon first, being the newest pending activation. So in this situation, Pulsemon's on play if you have 3 or fewer security cards, or 3 or more security cards, you can trigger draw 1. If you have 3 or fewer security cards, you gain a memory. In this situation, we're exactly at 3 memory, so we will be able to gain a memory, or 3 security, we will be able to gain a memory and draw a card. Now the only other effect that we have left to resolve is Ubermon's effect. We do have 3 or fewer security, we're able to draw a card. Again, this isn't really a yellow specific thing, this is a interaction that can come up definitely in yellow, as I said with Lord Nightmon or Angelomon's effect or something like that. But mainly this has to do with just how pending activations work, how you have to activate the most recent pending activation before you move back to older pending activations. If you guys want to see some more complicated ones where you have to resolve a whole bunch of other effects before you go back to an effect that happened maybe 2 or 3 pending activations ago, let me know. We can go over something like that. They're going to involve older cards, so I didn't really want to go over them. I just kind of wanted to go over stuff that would still be pertinent to the BT7 meta currently. So on the topic of yellow rulings, we're going to go over an effect that I have seen come up because it does involve cards that you will see playing against or playing yellow hybrid. So in this situation, what our board looks like is we have our deck right here, we have 3 security, and we have a Dynasmon. I know I'm playing in a little one, but I kind of want to leave this room over here so we can show off some cards in bigger text. So Dynasmon's effect, the only one that we're worried about here is your all turns once per turn. When a card is removed from your security stack, if you are at 3 or fewer security, you can recover 1 from deck. So in this situation, we play TK from our hand, going to 0. TK's effect will activate. On play, look at your security stack, reveal 1 card in it. If it's yellow, you add it, or you reveal 1 card, you add it to your hand. If it's yellow, you can trigger recovery 1. So in this situation, we're looking at it, we decided to go ahead and take yellow memory boost. And then this removal of a card from our security triggers Dynasmon. We removed a card, we're at less than 3 security, or 3 or less security, Dynasmon triggers, but we have to finish resolving TK first. So in this situation, we will recover the 1 card off of TK, we'll go ahead, shuffle up our security, lay it back out. TK's effect has now officially resolved, this card is in our hand. Now, we did trigger Dynasmon. A card was effectively removed from our security, even though we have added a card back and we're still at 3 security. Since a card was effectively removed, we can activate, we will activate Dynasmon's effect, I should say, to recover 1. So even though our security didn't change, a card was still effectively removed from our security, and we were at 3 or less security, we were able to recover 1. This also happens with something like Zoe. Let's say you activate Zoe's effect, play it, reveal, you have a Dynasmon, you're at 3 or less security, you have a hybrid, you add that hybrid from Zoe's effect to your hand. Since you did remove a card from your security, you are able to recover 1 off of Dynasmon's effect. It's an effect that comes up. Yellow hybrid really does like to play their tamers like TK and Zoe with having Dynasmon on the field because he is very beneficial for the deck's playstyle. So next color we're going to move on to is green. We only have 1 green interaction. I have had this question asked to me personally, and I've seen it come up in a few events. So in this situation, what we have here is a board state like this. We have a Rebellion. This Rebellion is active. I'm going to go ahead and put a dice on this Rebellion just to signify that it does have its blocker and retaliation effect from the previous player's turn. Our field is a Ancient Beetlemon. Now there is a JP underneath this. This kind of comes up, I'll mention it, but in the long run, it won't really matter. And Ancient Beetlemon's Your Turn effect, if you don't know, is once per turn when one of your Digimon with 10 warriors or hybrids in its traits deletes an opponent's Digimon in battle and survives, it can trash the top. You then trash the top card of your opponent's security. So what happens here is you decide to swing with your Ancient Beetlemon. At this point, your opponent will then activate the effect of Rebellion to block and will block the Ancient Beetlemon. Battle happens first, or battle happens in this case, and the Rebellion dies. The Rebellion dying triggers 3 things at this point. It triggers retaliation on your opponent's side of the field. It triggers Ancient Beetlemon's effect of it's your turn effect whenever it deletes an Insectoid or an 10 Warriors Digimon deletes a Digimon in battle and survives, and it triggers JP's Piercing. So, as the turn player, you get to choose your order of activation before your opponent chooses their order of activation. So in this situation, Ancient Beetlemon will trigger your turn effect first in this situation, and your opponent will then trash the top card of their security stack. The other effect that activates that most people don't think about is Piercing. Piercing's kind of a situation where it is an effect that activates when a Digimon, or it triggers and activates when a Digimon is deleted. This will allow you to quote-unquote check security. It gives you permission to check security after a battle with a Digimon, as long as that Digimon was deleted. And in this situation, the Rebellion is deleted. But before you get to actually do your piercing checks, you have to finish resolving all the effects before the battle, before the security checks happen. Our last security effect, even though we've activated piercing, our last effect that we have to resolve is Rebellion's retaliation effect. Now, since you have no more pending activations to activate, it is your opponent's turn to activate their most recent pending activation, and in this case, it is Rebellion. Rebellion's retaliation will trigger. It will delete the Ancient Beetlemon. So the Ancient Beetlemon is deleted. So at this point, both the Ancient Beetlemon and the Rebellion are deleted. No security checks will happen because the Ancient Beetlemon died, but you will get to trash the security, and as confusing as it sounds, Piercing will activate. I have an example of this one. It's an older example of something like Blitz Omni with a Retaliator and or Piercing with the Durandamon underneath. It's a much more complicated thing. It sounds a little weird, but if you guys want me to go over that one in a future video, let me know. Again, it's an older interaction. I don't think will come up as much, but it might be important to some people. So moving on to the next color, we're going to go over black cards. Now this doesn't necessarily have to be black cards. It could just be any card that involves de-digivolving in a tamer. It just so happens that most black cards have all the de-digivolve effects. So in this situation, what we have here is an Aldamon with a Burning Greymon, a Gunimon, and a Takuya Kumbara in the sources. What really matters here is it's an Aldamon and a Takuya down here in the sources. In our opponent's security, which is they only have one of, is a Ultimate Flare. Security effect is activate the main effect, and then its main effect is trigger de-digivolve 3, and then delete all of your opponent's Digimon with play cost of 3 or less. So here we're going to go ahead and we're going to have our Aldamon swing at our opponent's security. Like I said, we already know what it is. It is an Ultimate Flare. Ultimate Flare's effect will trigger. Our opponent will decide to de-digivolve us 3. It is a May effect, so you can choose not to de-digivolve all the way down, but we're going to de-digivolve 3, and we're going to end here on a Takuya. So what happens when you de-digivolve down to a Takuya? Does it get deleted by Ultimate Flare? No, it is a tamer. Well, what happens to the Takuya? It just goes back into play in the same state that the Aldamon was in. The Aldamon was suspended, so you'll de-digivolve it back down into a suspended Takuya. So even though it's no longer a Digimon, so Ultimate Flare can't delete it, and it was de-digivolved down, it stays on the field. It does not replay itself. It has always been in play as a source at that point. But when you de-digivolve it, it does not get replayed. So if it has an on-play effect, you don't reactivate the on-play effect. You just de-digivolve it back down into the position, suspended or unsuspended, that it was before it was de-digivolved. Okay, so on to a few purple rulings. This is going to be kind of a 2-for-1. We're going to fit a couple of cards into this at once. The first one, question I have a lot is, you have a situation like this. You have a mat on the field, basically just a purple source. You have something in the trash. Doesn't really matter, but you decide to play Calling from the Darkness. You pay your 1 memory. Your board is empty at this point. You don't have any Digimon on your board. You activate Calling from the Darkness. Now, the ruling on Calling, if you don't know what Calling even says, it first off says delete one of your Digimon, then return up to 2 purple Digimon from your trash to your hand. Now, even if you have an empty board, if you play Calling, the game lets you basically play things even without a target for memory manipulation purposes. In this situation, you can play Calling, and you do as much as the card says to do. So first off, you would delete one of your Digimon. If your board is empty, you don't delete anything. Now, if there is a valid target, like let's say this Kaiser Leomon is on the field, you have to delete a Digimon if there is a valid target. If there is no valid target, then you just don't worry about that effect. You move on to the next effect. then return 2 purple Digimon cards from your trash to your hand. At this point, you are able to return up to. So on up to effects, again, as mentioned before, in this one with something like D-Digivolve, up to effects mean you have to take at least one, but you don't have to take both. In this situation, we will take both of them, and then we will add them to the hand. And then calling finishes resolving. So it's the same ruling as Blinding Ray. Blinding Ray works the same way. If you don't have a security trash, you don't trash the security, but you still get to gain 2 memory. Now, on a side note, you also have stuff like Deathclaw. Now, Deathclaw has a little bit of a different effect. Now, in this situation with Deathclaw, we may have this Kaiser Leomon on the field, and then we're at 0, maybe we want to pass our opponent to 1 memory. You can play Deathclaw, paying 1. Deathclaw's effect states you may delete one of your Digimon to delete one of your opponent's level 4 or lower Digimon. This is a may effect. You can play this, passing the memory over to 1, and then choose not to delete something. This isn't the same as calling. Calling says delete one of your Digimon. It is a mandatory effect. If there is a target, you have to delete it. With Deathclaw, on the other hand, it is a may effect. You can just use it to either activate another source effect, maybe a tamer, or just for memory manipulation purposes, you just play Deathclaw and you can choose not to delete anything, and then it goes to the trash. Now, if you choose not to delete anything, Deathclaw is not able to delete one of your opponent's level 4 or lower Digimon as well. So just keep that in mind. So in this situation, this is going to be kind of a ruling combo thing on using an option card coming out of security and activating, and then delay effects activating, involving cards like Mimi Tachikawa from BT3, and cards like Emergency Program Shutdown from EX01. So in this situation, our board state is a Mimi Tachikawa and an Upamon on field. This is just for legality purposes, and we're going to have a Reinforced Memory Boost in our hand. So what we're going to do here is we're going to use Reinforced Memory Boost. We'll pay the 3 memory. This using of the option card from the hand triggers Mimi. So Mimi's triggered. You do not suspend Mimi at this point. You have to finish resolving the effect of Reinforced Memory Boost. So you use Reinforced Memory Boost, you will look at your top 2 cards, decide to add one to the top, decide to add the other one to your hand, and then you will play this to the battle area. Now, Mimi Tachikawa can activate. So now is when you would suspend Mimi because you used an option card. This would gain you the memory. Make sure you have to activate the effect after the resolution of the option card you used. This is in any situation. Now, again, while we're on the topic of memory boosts, when you decide to activate the main delay effect to gain 3 memory from your Reinforced Memory Boost, this does not trigger Mimi. You're not using an option card, such as using it from your hand or using it from an effect such as Beelstarmon. You are activating the delay effect. This then sends it to the trash to gain the 3 memory. And in this situation, again, you're not using the option card. Mimi cannot trigger. The option card has already been activated and is in play. This is just using the delay effect. In the same vein, we have something like Ultimate Flare. If an Ultimate Flare comes out of security, you swing in, you hit a check, Ultimate Flare comes out of security. Its security effect is activate this card's main effect. This does not count as the player using an option card. They are not using the card. It is a security effect that is then happening to play or to activate the main effect. So just know your difference. In that situation, you would also not be able to suspend Mimi. You can only do it, again, like I said, when you use option cards from the hand, or you use option cards through something like Beelstarmon's effect, which lets you use option cards for free. So last but certainly not least, we're going to go over some white card rulings. So in this situation, we have 10 hybrids and or tamers in our trash, and then we have a Mimi Tachikawa on the field, and we have a Susanoo-amon in our hand. All that really matters is the Susanoo-amon and the hybrids / tamers in the trash. So in this situation, if you remember from last video, you reveal Susanoo-amon from your hand. In this situation, I'm going to just put him in the battle area just to reveal him to my opponent. And it is a may effect, so you may put the 10 cards from your trash and or hand. In this situation, they're all in trash. You put them on the bottom of your deck in any order of your choosing. Now at this point, you may decide to Digivolve him on top of your Mimi, or you may not. And if you don't, after the reveal, you decide not to Digivolve, you trash the Susanoo-amon to the trash. And in another situation, let's say you have the 10 hybrids, you decide to bot deck them, you don't have a Mimi on field, you can still activate this effect of Susanoo-amon. It is a hand effect, it is his hand effect, so you would reveal him, activate his effect, bot deck your tamers and hybrids, and then there is no target to digivolve. This is your board state. It's an empty board state. Susanoo-amon will then just go to the trash. This was how it was ruled until further notice. There was a situation with a future card that came up where one card would go back to your hand, but to avoid too much confusion, currently this is how this card is ruled in the English card game. If you decide to not digivolve, he goes to the trash. You do get to resolve his effect by putting the cards on the bottom of your deck. You do not have to have a tamer to digivolve onto, and you do not have to digivolve your tamer if you choose not to. If you just want to activate the effect to get the cards back in deck, that is a perfectly legal play, and Susanoo-amon will go to the trash. So last but certainly not least is Bokomon. This is the last ruling that we're going to go over for this video, and the last white card we're going to go over as well. Bokomon, of course, the only effect that we're worried about here is when one of your tamers digivolves, you get to gain 2 memory. We have a memory blocker on the field. I've chosen Madoki. Pick your poison if you like Gazi, Terriermon, whatever else memory blocker you have. So in this situation, we're going to have a Takuya Kambara on our field, and we're going to digivolve the Takuya into a Burning Greymon. So when you digivolve Takuya into a Burning Greymon, this triggers 2 effects simultaneously. This triggers the effect of Bokomon to gain you 2 memory since one of your tamers digivolves, and this also triggers Burning Greymon's when digivolving effect because there is a Takuya in the sources. So in this situation, we're going to activate Burning Greymon first. Since there is a Takuya, we're able to delete one of our opponent's Digimon with 4k or less DP. And then we are able to trigger Bokomon successfully, or activate Bokomon successfully, I should say, to gain 2 memory, since when we decide to activate Bokomon after resolving the effect of Burning Greymon, Madoki Betamon is no longer on the field and is not able to block any memory gain. In the same vein, we're going to have another situation where we have Koji on field. So in this situation, we're going to activate Koji's effect. There is going to be the Madoki, and we have the Bokomon. So Koji's effect, for ease of access, I'm only going to put the 1 Strabimon underneath. This is just for ease of access, like I said, because we don't want to have to put all 5 underneath. You've seen it done before, and Strabimon is the only pertinent card we were going to need for this example. So we're going to put all the 5 hybrids from our hands underneath, and we're going to digivolve Koji into Magna Garurumon. Again, similar to Burning Greymon, this will trigger 2 effects at the same time. It will trigger Bokomon's effect to gain us 2 memory since Koji digivolved one of our tamers, and this will trigger Magna Garurumon's when digivolving effect to return a card from the Digivolution sources of equal level to one of the opponent's Digimon that we decide to bounce. So in this situation, we're going to bounce the Strabimon back to our hand to bounce the Madoki Betamon since they're both level 3. Adding the Strabimon back to our hand will trigger the effect of Koji, since we have added a card back to our hand via a card effect. So we finished resolving Magna's effect, adding the Strabimon, bouncing the Madoki. Now our most recent triggered card has to take priority. So we are going to have to activate Koji first. So we brought the memory back over to 3 when we digivolved into the Magna. Koji's effect will then activate after triggering from the Strabimon edition to gain us 1 memory. And then Bokomon is able to trigger or to activate, gaining us 2 memory as well. Since the Madoki Betamon is no longer on the field after the activation of the Magna Garurumon, Koji is able to gain us the memory, and Bokomon is able to gain us the memory because we no longer have a memory blocker on the field whenever their effects go to resolve. Alright everyone, and that will be the end of today's video. I tried to keep it a little bit shorter, but I did kind of go over some more detailed interactions that made the video go a little bit longer, even though I didn't go over as many specific cards, I don't believe. I did go over more overarching interactions that required a little bit more detailed. If you guys want to see some much more complicated ones, I kind of mentioned that earlier in the video as some like multiple effect resolutions before we just had like 1 effect, then go back to an older effect, and then maybe another 1 effect, go back. If you want to see something like 1 effect, then another order of pending activation, and then another one, and then another one, and then we have to go back several steps, be sure to let me know down in the comments below. I'd love to go over some of those wacky interactions and complicated order of activation things are super interesting to me to go over, so I would love to go over those in a future video. All that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Be sure to leave a like down below, comment down below if there's any other rulings that you guys may want me to answer, some small ones or stuff for a future video that I didn't go over in this video or in the other video or in the comments of the other video. And then, like I said, be sure to like the video if you did enjoy. The last video did phenomenal, and I'm so happy that you guys enjoyed it. I'm going to try to keep putting out this content. I definitely want more and more people to know their rulings effectively, and then then the closer we get to BT8, especially after BT8 releases, we're gonna have another good video for BT8 rulings that people will definitely need to know. May have another one before then if you guys want to see some of these more wacky interactions. But like I said, subscribe, like, comment down below. We will have more gameplay videos, more deck profile videos, and definitely more ruling videos. If you guys keep on enjoying the content, we'll keep putting it out. But with all that said, thank you again so much, guys, for watching. And until next time, peace. Side note for the end of the video, you may have noticed that the background lighting changed a little bit. I'm wearing headphones in one part. I recorded one part in a different section than the other one. You're not going crazy. Other than that, huge shout outs to Sinobali. I'm hoping pronouncing your name right. They are the person who did the artwork for the new in card that we're going to have at the end of the video. Has a whole bunch of references to Digimon World 1, 2, and 3. I will be sure in every video to leave their Twitter down in the comments or in the description below, as well as a link to their Patreon if you want to go ahead and be a patron to them. They're super awesome. They let me use this. I make sure to credit them, and their artwork is awesome, so be sure to go throw some support that way. Otherwise, guys, later.